want your family now. So, and we did it, and it turned out, though, I finally had to admit, that it really was a secret weapon, because, most people aren't real philosophic. It's people like you who support candidates and donate money and campaign and work hard. Average people don't know a whole lot. That's just the way it is. So the image is rather important. So I had to admit to her later on, she probably got more votes for me than I got for myself, by doing this. But it is a delight to be here, but I have to add one thing to her introduction. She said where I went to school here, and she also went to high school here. She was from Dormont, I was from Green Tree, and we went to high school together. But she forgot to mention that very close to here, I finished my medical training at the University of Pittsburgh at McGee Women's Hospital.
Oh, that's right.
That was after I had been at the Henry Ford Hospital. I was in internal medicine there. I was drafted in 1962 for during the Cuban crisis. And by the time we actually got sworn into office in January, that crisis was essentially over, but the Vietnam crisis was ongoing. But we were stationed at Kelly Air Force Base in San Antonio, and then I came back up here, and we lived in Pittsburgh for the 3 years to finish up the residency. But by that time, we had decided that we'd move to a slightly warmer climate and a few other things. So we grew to like Texas, so we moved back to the Houston area. Our home is not too far from Houston on the Gulf Coast, and that's where the congressional district is. But it is a real delight to come and visit with people who are enthusiastic about the cause of liberty. To me, that is the issue, and I want to thank you very much for coming out, just for your attendance and your support, your willingness to volunteer and do all the things necessary. And John mentioned, that we do quite well, with our crowds coming out and the money raised and running a campaign and others. In a conventional campaign, if a candidate isn't perceived by the public, by the media, that they're right up there, they're on the verge of winning and all, the money dries up, the money disappears. And it is a good market test. If you have no supporters, nobody shows up and nobody sends any money, you ought to pack your bag. And so do that. But I haven't been packing my bag yet, so... It is expensive to do the ads and travel. We do spend the money on the travel, but boy, this allows us to get around. I mean, last night we were in Ithaca, New York at Cornell, and we were able to get here by midnight and get started this morning. And it has been gratifying. Last weekend there was the money bomb. I don't know where that came from, but it raised like $1.5 million. So that means we're still getting that voice of endorsement, and I want to thank you all for all this participation. But the campaign is difficult to totally analyze because unless you avoid reading newspapers, if you avoid reading newspapers, that's very good because you wouldn't get confused. But basically, the campaign is doing quite well. We don't know exactly how many delegates we have. Neither does the media know, and they sort of hit a much lower number than we believe it to be. Matter of fact, I saw the lowest number today ever on a report, but we're still just in the middle of this process. I mean, there's a lot of activity and a lot of counting. There's these primaries left, but even as Iowa, there's a chance that we might, win the most delegates out of Iowa. So this is ongoing. But the difficulty, though, is that I don't know if you can believe this, but sometimes there are shenanigans in the way they count the votes. Sometimes I don't know whether you should say they cheat, but sometimes it comes awful close. They bend the rules, they break the rules, they do what is ever necessary at time. I'll tell you what, supporters have been fighters. And you take 4 years ago what happened out in Nevada, rebellions. We found them, and they said that. And then in Alaska, we're fighting a battle up there right now. So we have some states we're doing quite well, and we have to be alert, and we can salvage it. Right now, they're still fighting over what's going on in Maine and North Dakota and these various places. Missouri, there was a nice victory in Missouri. Right. They had closed down the largest, primary meeting, caucus, and then later on came back and the Ron Paul supporters won that race too. So there are times that we can, but obviously it is very difficult. But the really exciting thing though is the power and the strength of the message and what's happening. And I don't think if there's any doubt. There's only, I think, one rule that I don't like rules and laws. You know that. But I think what I'm going to do is have the election determined by everybody between 18 and 40. If you happen to be over 40, if you have a free spirit and you act like you're over 40, that will let you vote. But that's where all the energy is, and that's where it's important, because changes are coming. There's no doubt in my mind that the system that we have today is non-viable. It's not going to persist. The Federal Reserve is not going to be able to keep printing money. Congress can't keep spending money and running up these debts. And we can't keep maintaining an empire. We can't afford it. It's all coming to an end. I think everybody's recognizing this. And the young people recognize it because they're inheriting, and they're inheriting the obligations and the burden, the debt. Sometimes it's student debt they're inheriting, and the inability to get a good job. So this is a major event going on. The big thing is we don't know exactly when things occur. Even in the election 4 years ago, we knew these things were coming, but the exact date was unknown. And we're now just, I think, on the verge of having a dollar crisis where the dollar is rejected. And the big issue is what happens if the world stops using the dollar as the reserve currency, and especially for the contracts in oil. The relationship with oil and the dollar. And I believe it is true that countries that have worked hard to try to get rid of the dollar, such as Iraq and Iran and Libya and other countries like that, this is a major attack on the establishment, not only on the United States government and the U.S. dollar, but everybody has dollars. I mean, even China's not interested in just dumping the dollar. They have a couple trillion of them, so they have to be careful. That is a major issue, but the economic law says they can't continue it forever, and the people who are so concerned today, I think it has to do with this. So this is why I think the campaign is so appropriate, because we've addressed these subjects. We addressed the subject of foreign policy. Let's not wait till we have to leave like all other great nations do. They finally go bankrupt and they have to crawl home and just have a salvage operation. Why don't we wise up, mind our own business, and bring our troops home right now? Save a lot of problems. But we also have to wise up and realize that this incrementalism is moving rather rapidly. It's been going on for decades, but in the last 10 years, it's moving rapidly. Matter of fact, in these last several months, couple of years, just think of all the laws that have passed. Since 9/11, of course, we've had the Patriot Act, and we have court rulings now that are difficult to understand. There's a recent law passed that said that if anybody is caught demonstrating near a Secret Service agent that is defending a very important political figure, if they get within a certain distance, they can be arrested just for demonstrating or flashing a sign and being put in prison for 10 years. So I would say that in a free society, it's equal justice under the law, and that means you don't have privileges for the people who think they're privileged, and we should not have anything like that to think that people can be put in prison for that. Why might we not suggest that we still believe in the First Amendment?
Right. Yeah.
also, the court has just recently ruled, it was a 5-4 ruling, that we as American citizens can be strip searched without probable cause, just because they stop somebody for a traffic violation or for whatever. And it doesn't have to be at the airport, any place or at the airport. And this is all the atmosphere that we live in. And the 9/11, as far as I'm concerned, has been the excuse for doing this. This is not because or a logical reason to do it, because many of the laws, whether it's the Patriot Act or other things, they have been proposed a long time before. The plan to invade Iraq was laid out a long time, because I remember the exact date that I gave the first talk on the House floor. It was during the debate on a bill to say that our foreign policy should change against Saddam Hussein. He used to be our friend, but now he's our enemy, and now we have to overthrow him. I said, well, this is going to lead to war if you change his policy. So it had nothing to do with 9/11 other than that was the excuse. So 9/11 was the excuse, and this has continued. But they don't even have many excuses for what's happening. I mean, what is the... well, indirectly it is. They keep using it. The National Defense Authorization Act, this idea that the military can arrest anybody, any American, put them in prison, no charges, no attorney, and no trial, kept them in prison indefinitely. It's all because it's the global war on terrorism. I mean, we as a country have declared war on the whole world because it's global. And now we have made the assumption that we have the authority and moral authority and constitutional authority to send drone missiles to any place in the world, assassinate American citizens, and actually now there's planned for 30,000 drones to be flying over the United States. And now that we have the military that can arrest American citizens, this is moving rapidly, and that is why it's crucial that we win the hearts and the minds of the American people, not winning elections on somebody else's terms. The goal ought to always be to win the election and get the endorsements of the principal. The most important thing, obviously, are the principal. But if we get the endorsements or a major support, this means that people will pay attention. And I think this is where we're really winning. The country's changing their attitude about the war in Afghanistan. 70% of the people say, come on home. And what about the Federal Reserve? Who I never dreamed that the Federal Reserve would become the issue that I've always wanted it to become here in the last year or so. It's been around for 100 years, but I think it's the obvious failure. The failure of the economic system, the monetary system, failure of the foreign policy, and this attack on civil liberties. And the American people are starting to wake up. And this is in spite of what they hear on the evening news, because the evening news does not report what has to be done. So on the large crowds, tonight we expect to have a large crowd, and they will respond favorably and knowledgeably about what I'm talking about right now, and whether it's the National Defense Authorization Act or these searches and military arrests. This is all well known, but it comes from word of mouth, it comes from the internet, it comes from the various sources, and there's still a lot of radio talk shows on. So we still live in a country that's free enough to spread this message and participate in the electoral process. The process sometimes can get aggravating, and I know how frustrating it must be to many of you, because you send messages and there's not many friends of liberty in Washington, D.C., but when the people wake up, it makes a difference. The people, I don't look at it as changing all the individuals in Congress or converting the people in Washington, because most of them there are for one reason. They like the job, and they don't have deep beliefs. So you have to capitalize on that. If they don't have deep beliefs, maybe they will respond to your messages. And a good example of how they've done that is, when we passed in the House at least the Audit the Federal Reserve bill, that came because the people said so, not because it originated in Washington. What about Stop Online Piracy Act? That was stopped because the people yelled and screamed and said, no, we want freedom on the internet. And the two bad bills that were in the House and the Senate were finally removed. That was the good part, but the downside of that is they come back with a new bill. This is CISPA, and this is cyber intelligence safety. They're going to give us safety and security and protect the internet. And you can, it's sort of like the Patriot Act being patriotic. It's always the opposite. Too bad they hadn't called that repeal of the Fourth Amendment Act. Maybe not so many people would have voted for it. But CISPA is put up by Mike Rogers out of Michigan, and he seems to be picking up momentum. He says, "Oh, this is a much better bill," and the civil libertarians say it's much worse. So if you have any chance or any access to a congressman or a senator, it won't hurt, and to get like 10 or 20,000 letters to them. Because they respond to the noise of the people. When the people wake up, the Congress will wake up. So this system is still available to us. But it doesn't mean that it will always be. So we have two ways that we can do it. The people are waking up. I think we're winning the intellectual fight. But also, the other side are very determined to cling. The efforts in Washington is not a fight over philosophy. It's a fight over power. It's a fight over our guys and your guys, our friends and your friends. We want to bail out this group. They want to bail out this group. And they worked this out pretty well for a good many years, especially between 1971 up until 5 years ago, because there was so much wealth. We were still, very productive, and tax revenues were coming in. The dollar was more trusted, and there was still wealth in the country, so they compromised. And they say they never compromised. We've had way too much compromise. They compromise on, you give us our money, we'll take this money. They might not agree on which country is to bail out, but they both defend the principle that we should be the policemen of the world. And they go on, and now I think that this is all coming to an end. Because people are realizing there's nothing left, and we're not producing the wealth. The good jobs have gone overseas, and this recession is not over. Matter of fact, I suspect it's going to be turning down once again. But what really should be the concern is the rapid deterioration of the economy with a deserting from the dollar, and that could happen next week, next month, next year, 2 or 3 years from now. But that will be a very big effort. So instead of compromising on what we believe, what I think should be done politically is we should bring groups together. And fortunately, I think that's what liberty does. It brings us together for the various reasons, because each and every one of us have a right to our life. We have a right to our liberty. We have the right to keep the fruits of our labor. And under those circumstances, we have a right to have our own social values, our own religious and intellectual values. We should have the right to spend our money as we choose. This should bring everybody together and say, it isn't so much that we want to be uniform. It means that we have to be uniform in defending the principles of liberty. And then it should not be divisive. When liberty survives and thrives, people should be coming together. It should eliminate and bring diversity. The crowd should be diverse. And I think this is what's occurring. I think I've noticed this in so many of the crowds, that people come together, not because they agree on the issues, except for the issue of liberty. And this is why I am very happy and very confident that we're making great strides, but also very cautious in saying that, well, we're about there, we're going to win, we're going to win this election, it's all going to be different next week. It's not going to happen that way. I'm very confident that the groundwork has been laid, and it's exploding with interest. There was a very, very small irate Taoist minority maneuvering out there, but that group is growing, by leaps and bounds, and it's influencing the people, as we see, whether it comes with the Federal Reserve or protecting the internet. So this is I see it as working, and but we have to realize how important it is that we gather even more momentum, more people involved, and whether or not within the Republican Party or not, I don't know what people should do. They can do what they want. But eventually a true revolution is going to be bringing people together, coalitions together, and it's going to involve independents, Democrats, and Republicans. And I think that is both a benefit and a disadvantage right now, because, just selling the cause of liberty and the principles of liberty in the Republican primary is a real challenge, And we certainly can see that the majority of the people, should come together with this, and this is what we're witnessing. So I want to make sure you know how much I appreciate your support and your encouragement. Without people like you, there's no campaign. And a lot of times I get a lot of credit for this, but I am just in a position that happens to be there, and I can encourage people. But the effort to do this, it has come. The work for this has been going on for a long time. Keynesian economics didn't happen on one day. There were the intellectuals in the colleges, in the media, and they continue to have a visible presence everywhere. But that system is done and gone. It's over with. But the real work has been done intellectually by Austrian economics and people who are redefining and defining what true liberty is all about and why we need to go back to some fundamentals on foreign policy. That is occurring. There are literally thousands, if not millions, of people there. But the big question is if a major crisis hit, how much will they use this authority that they've been accumulating? And that can be a frightening experience. So we do have to be prepared. But when we see that we're going to be winning on these battles, we no longer will have the Department of Homeland Security. The president won't be allowed to assassinate American citizens without a trial. And we will not have a Federal Reserve System. We will have sound money. We will not have an entitlement system which is supposed to help the poor, but is really designed to help the rich. And we no longer will have a foreign policy designed to make the world safe for democracy, and all they do is create more and more wars. So we will know when it comes, and the seeds have been sown. So let's make sure we grow this tree of liberty rather rapidly. Thank you very much. Before we do that, I want to mention that we have a candidate for the Senate here, Mark Scaringi.
Dr. Paul, when it comes time to decide how things are going in Tampa, if you're not selected as the candidate, it is our hope that you will tell us what to do.
We might have difficulty because I'm not used to telling other people what to do. I may well have some suggestions. I think it depends on the individuals. Some individuals, they're well entrenched into Republican politics. They're in positions, they're running for office, they've been elected. More people have been elected, state representatives, state senators, and individuals running for the Senate. There's a lot of activity going on to say, well, the Republican Party, they rejected us, and they've disobeyed the rules, and they've done all this, so therefore let's just leave. There's too much investment. I mean, how would the people who become officials, if you're chairman of the Republican Party in Iowa, to say, I've had it. No, so I would encourage people to continue to do that. It'd be nice if we had democracy in this country in the sense of electing officials, that maybe we could have competition between that two-party system, which is one party, and then you should go and work in another party. But the impracticality there is they don't allow you to debates. You can't get on ballots. They're so much handicapped. So it's up to the individual. If you want to stay politically active, I would say that it's still within the Republican Party. If you happen to be in an area where you want to work on Democrats, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I would stick with working in the Republican Party. But if people get really annoyed, that doesn't mean there's not a place. It may be in academia. It may be writing books. It may be working on the internet. It may be doing things. Running for office, supporting another candidate. So it is going to be different for everybody. But the one thing that I do believe all of us should do, and I've always felt an obligation, not only not that I'm sacrificing anything, but in my best interest, is to learn and to study and to understand how the market works and how liberty works and why people who promote the opposite in the name of humanitarianism, how you can refute that. And you can do that in many different ways. And some people do it within the political system, others just in an educational system. So there's room for all, but there will be, I'm sure, regardless of how things turn out in Tampa, I am sure we're going to have plenty of delegates making a presence there in Tampa this year.
This is
Okay, we got that. Here we go.
Congressman Paul. Sounds great. My background's in education, and I'm a certified social studies teacher. I have a master's degree, a bachelor's of political science. I can't find a job. I don't agree with the system as it is anyway with public education, because I know from economics courses that monopolies are bad, and government runs are bad. And that's public education for you. So I was just wondering if you had any insights on how one might go about dismantling that and encouraging competition in education at a more local and statewide level.
Well, fortunately, there is some competition. Monopoly control of anything is not necessarily good, but I think you can narrow it down almost. Essentially, all monopolies are government protected. The market doesn't. As long as there's free entry, there's usually not monopoly. But if you're in education, you look at the public school system and you know the shortcomings, then you're going to have to be creative. There's a lot of internet education going on. There's need for homeschooling education. There's private schooling education going on. And there's self-education. It might be that you might not make a living in education, but there is self-education. And that's becoming more popular now because people are getting degrees. And we're manufacturing a lot of degrees. They end up not learning the right things to get the right kind of job. I think I saw a figure the other day, like 600,000 jobs going vacant in this country. We need more immigrants to come in because our people leaving school aren't qualified to do things. So a lot of people who have done very well in the business community are advising that the degree itself isn't, necessarily, your license to go out and make a good living. I don't think there is a one answer, and I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's believing in something, understanding it, and defending it, and then have this obligation to know how to spread this message. And this is where we have more opportunities. In the 50s and the 60s, when I was looking for information and trying to figure this out, it was hard to find books. And there were only a few really free market think tanks. Today there are so many. There's so many of these think tanks and organizations that are very much involved in education. So my guess that if you're promoting the cause of liberty in an educational sense, it's going to be much easier to get around the monopolists outside the public school system. But we have friends in the public school system, and they're able to survive. But I think if you make the effort and you feel like you're well trained, there's going to be a job out there for you to help out.
Dr. Paul, this isn't so much a question, but I just wanted to say thank you. I know I thank you 20 times when you walked in the door. You're so humble. I really think you believe that you're just lucky enough to be in the right place, right time. But You've been fighting for civil liberties longer than I've been alive, and I just want to thank you for that. I know it's not easy. I know a lot of people in this room probably talk to people every day, try to educate them. And as you know, you got to give an history lesson every time you talk about a policy. So it's not easy. It's stressful. I think everybody can say that. But you've been doing it for decades, and I just want to thank you for your principles, your backbone, and being an inspiration.
Dr. Paul, the charter for the Federal Reserve is up in August 2013. What happens after that point?
Well, what do I think will happen if we don't win victory in the revolution by then? They'll just probably renew it. But I think the appropriate thing to do for the 100th anniversary, they've already destroyed 98% of the value of the dollar. They're working on the last 2%. So I would say the celebration ought to be with the passage of the repealing of the Federal Reserve Act.
Dr. Paul, you've clearly gathered a huge following over the last couple of years. It's clear that the mainstream media hasn't helped you out very much, and the internet and YouTube has been pretty much your friend. On the other side of the coin, YouTube and the internet has hurt Mitt Romney and Obama, exposing both sides of the coin there. My question is I'm sorry, I'm a little confused here. It's clear, it's becoming more apparent that Mitt Romney will not be able to beat Obama without the support of us and other Ron Paul supporters. Is Mitt Romney, in your conversations with him, is it apparent to you that he's ignorant to that fact, or has he acknowledged that fact that he cannot beat Obama without the Ron Paul supporters, or have you guys discussed that at all?
And this might have been related to the other gentleman's question that maybe I didn't address, but yes, it leads to that. If we don't win it and Romney wins it, what will happen to the supporters? Because the numbers are a lot bigger than anybody would give us credit for, because we might be getting 15% or so in the Republican primary, or maybe up to 20%, but it's probably twice that big. And when my name is put up against Obama, we can beat Obama, and yet it doesn't get the news. So we do as well as Romney. You're suggesting, well, how could Romney expect to win if he doesn't win us over? Well, and once again, I don't think I'll ever come out and say, all right, folks, everybody in this room, I lost the election. I want you all to go out there and vote for Romney. It's not likely. I hedge a little bit. Because we're in the middle of this race. When they ask me that on TV, I say, well, it'd be pretty difficult for me to say that, but he does flip-flop a lot. Maybe he'll change his position. And then I can support him. If he supports, then I go into my platform. If he supports me on the foreign policy and the drug war and the Federal Reserve, then we can. No, I think they know about it, and I think Romney's staff and our staff have always had cordial relations. My wife and I have cordial relations with Mrs. Romney as well as Governor Romney. But I said, yeah, we're friends, friendly. I said, but we don't agree on a whole lot in politics. So I think they would like. I think they're aware of it. I think it's one of the reasons why, unlike a senator that used to be a senator from Pennsylvania, he was quite willing to attack those people who believe in liberty and wanted to use their liberty in the way that they want. No, he has not done that. I think he realizes that it's a significant number, a lot different than it was 4 years ago. So they would like to get those votes, and I think that